appreciate that. One of the most talked about things last year, over the past couple of years, was a teacher walkout and how many educators actually ran for office. And we have with us today a school teacher, Senator Carri Hicks, District 40. Welcome. Appropriately enough, serves on the Education Committee for the Senate, and your rating of this session, overall productivity successes, and reaction to the fact that we spent all this money and gave all the teachers raises and stuff.
Is it on? I should have checked that. Sorry, I'm trying to be efficient with my time here. So I'm going to give you my rubric first, as any good school teacher would. I think it's time that we shift our mindset on productivity by numbers. My colleague, Senator Kurt, and I talk at length about things being measured in volume. I passed 10 bills, or I did 20 things, and you just kind of go, but was it meaningful? How many lives is it impacting? And does it mean that it's good work? And so really I've had to kind of adjust my own expectations, because I think that's maybe a cultural thing, that we always want to be doing better, doing more somehow equals good. And so really, when I look at how I'm going to grade our legislative session by volume, we had the most number of legislation introduced in history. Is that correct?
I believe so.
So if we were grading it by the numbers, that would be an A+. However, I think that we have to be reflective in saying, what did we accomplish by the amount of bills that we actually saw to the finish line? For myself personally, I introduced 15 pieces of legislation, always the overachiever apparently. I got one all the way through, well, actually two all the way through to the finish line. One was in the veto club, but the other one was actually had a ceremonial signing yesterday, and it literally will help save lives in Oklahoma. It provides emergency access to life-saving medications for individuals with chronic illnesses. My son has type 1 diabetes. He was diagnosed at 17 months old. And so our family has truly lived the rising cost of healthcare. And so that's another area that I feel like we fell short this year, this legislative session. That was a very tiny tiptoe in the right direction to really provide access and affordability for Oklahoma families who I feel like are being forgotten and left behind when it comes to access for affordable health care. I, along with my colleague, Representative Stark, will be serving on the bicameral task force for health care. I'm very excited to hear more, learn more, offer some insight and suggestions, obviously from our family's own personal experience. And while it is our own story as far as being affected by type 1 diabetes, I think you could very easily interchange any one of your stories as well as having complications to get, the insurance company and the hospital and everybody on the same page with making sure that we have patient-centered care here in Oklahoma. The missed opportunities that I'm a little disappointed about, obviously criminal justice reform was one of the major tenets of my campaign. I've experienced the justice system through the lives of my students as a former classroom teacher, and I can tell you that if we are not very intentional about reversing the trends that we have here in Oklahoma, being number one in female incarceration, number two in male incarceration in the world, I don't know what kind of a future we expect to have for our kids in this state. And so, I think there were some really great pieces of legislation that were left on the table. I'm excited that they are frozen in time, if you will, and I've already spoke with the floor leader about some that were hung out to dry in the House, and hopefully we can pick up where we were with those when we gobbled out this last session. We've talked a lot about education, and so let me frame this. We did, over the past 2 years, increase our investment in education by 25%. And that sounds incredible until you draw back and you look at the fact that we cut funding to education by 28% over the last decade. And so while I'm excited that we are close to closing the gap on the amount that we decreased, it's also important to recognize and realize that our student population has increased during this same time frame. Our teacher workforce has dwindled in this same time frame. And in the most recent reports, you've seen that we're at an overall high for emergency certified teachers and applicants at this time. So I think it frames a pretty good portrait that I give this an overall C because we are average and we need to be looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.